Hello, welcome to Miil Talks. Today, I watched this video on Twitter. This dude, Robin Minotti, and it kind of intrigued me, this video, so I thought I'd talk a bit about this guy. Larry Silverstein, the guy who owns Tower 7 and the World Trade Center, I think 1 and 2. Well, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, I don't know. But 7 for sure.
I had the pleasure of working pretty much with every prime minister of Israel, from Yitzhak Shamir forward. I said to myself, wouldn't it be fantastic if I could own the Twin Towers? We got very, very lucky. The governor of New York, George Pataki, decided one day that maybe it would be good to privatize the ownership of the World Trade Center. So I got a call from the governor's office, and they said, would you ever consider owning the World Trade Center? It was very, very good for the family, very good for us, and we were very, very fortunate. On the morning of 9/11, I'm getting ready, getting dressed to go to the dermatologist. I have light-colored hair, light skin. The sun is a disaster for me. I can't take the sun. She said, okay, but you're going to the dermatologist, you're going to...
See, that's what I'm thinking. The guy's got light skin, light hair, so he's going to the dermatologist. Well, I've never went to the dermatologist because I have light hair, light skin. My hair's not that light. But still, I don't know anybody who's gone to the dermatologist because they have light-colored skin. So that kind of struck me as not being very truthful. Oh, I got to go to the dermatologist because I got light skin. That's what goes on, right? I'm talking to a bunch of people apparently who don't have light skin because who of them go to the doctor, the dermatologist, because they have light-colored skin? So I got me thinking, wow, that rings of bullshit. So I figured I'd research this guy a little bit and see what his deal
This morning, and you're not going downtown. We got very, very lucky. And I had an obligation to collect the insurance proceeds from the policies. A new governor was just elected, Elliot Spitzer, an old friend who I knew well. I said, Elliot, if you don't help me, I'll never collect from the insurance companies. And guess what?
Oops. I don't know, I screwed up there. All right, anyway, so Buddy saw enough of the video, I guess. It seemed odd. So I started looking at into him a little bit, and then I found this BBC journalist reporting on Building 7 that Silverstein owns. I think he built it apparently in like whatever it was, early 90s, late 80s or whatever. And so he definitely owns Building 7 because he had it built. So now this leads to the building's collapse, even though it wasn't struck by an airplane, and all the other buildings around it did not collapse. And there was no other building in the history that collapsed straight down before the Twin Towers like that. And this was the third building that miraculously collapsed in on itself, like no other buildings have ever done in history before 9/11. And this building did it without an airplane hitting it. It was just apparently on fire. And he says that the antenna from Tower 1, the second building to collapse, went right through the building and caused it to catch on fire, which we will see is bullshit. But so here's the BBC reporting on it. And I thought, well, this must be a bad tape. As you
A
see.
few moments ago was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing, and indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. And it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
So here Jane is standing at the, maybe in front of a screen. That might make sense because the tower, Building 7 is still behind her, even though they said Building 7's collapsed. She's standing at a window.
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. There's almost a sense downtown in New York behind me, down by the World Trade.
See, it's a window. It's not a screen. This is a window. It's an open window. She's standing, and there's glass. There's no glass here. So she's at probably a patio or a balcony, probably in a hotel.
centres of just an area completely closed off as the rescue workers try to do their job. But this isn't the first building that has suffered as a result. We know that part of the Marriott Hotel next to the World Trade Center also collapsed as a result of this huge amount of falling debris from 110 floors of the two Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and we know that behind that there's an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline, a symbol of the financial prosperity of this city, but completely disappeared now, and New York is still unable to take on board what has happened to them today.
Presumably there were very few people in the Salomon building when it collapsed. I mean, there were, I suppose, fears of possible further collapses around the area.
There's the Solomon building right there. There was Tower 1, Tower 2, and that's...
That's what you would hope, because this whole downtown area behind me has been completely sealed off and evacuated, apart from the emergency workers. That was done by the Mayor, Rudy Giuliani, much earlier today, because of, course, the dreadful collapse of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. But New York, very much a city still in chaos. The phones are not working properly. The subway lines are not working.
The 47-story Solomon Brothers building collapsed to the World Trade Center. No, building close to the World Trade Center has also collapsed. And there it is.
Properly. And we know that down there near the World Trade Center there are 3 schools that are being turned into triage centres for emergency treatment. And I know that over in New York Harbour, where the famous Statue of Liberty is, there's a field hospital where 1,500 people are being treated. And we have heard, though it's unconfirmed as yet, that 100 New York City police officers have been taken there as well for treatment. But we do need to confirm those figures for the officers.
It's now, some 8 hours since the attacks. Is there any estimate yet available of the number of casualties in the World Trade Center?
No tall building had ever collapsed primarily due to fire. But that's exactly what investigators believe happened to the 47-story World Trade.
Okay, so that's World Trade Center, Building 7. Let's see what
investigators believe happened to the 47-story.
So as it's collapsing, you can see there's daylight through the window here, and they say it imploded, and then that's why the whole thing fell.
World Trade Center Building 7 on September 11th.
Even though no other building has ever fell the speed of gravity before, right? So this is the NIST, the National Institute of Standards. So these are the people that are giving the official cover-up story of why it collapsed, which may be the truth.
According to a 3-year comprehensive building and fire safety investigation just completed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST.
World Trade Center 7 collapsed because of fires. We really have a new kind of progressive collapse that we have discovered here.
No other building and no other metal frame building in history has collapsed due to burning couches and office furniture.
Fire-induced progressive collapse. And in fact, we've shown for the first time that fire can induce a progressive collapse.
NIST used detailed data describing the building and its contents to create the most complex computer simulation of a structure collapse ever made. Falling debris from Tower 1 started fires on 10 floors in Building 7. A break in the city water main from the collapse of the towers disabled sprinklers in the lower half of WTC 7, allowing fires on those floors to burn for 7 hours.
So it doesn't matter that there was fires burning for 7 hours on the ground floor of that building. There have been other buildings that have been totally consumed. Every floor, not just 10 floors, but every floor by fire. Now this Silverstein dude, he may have cut corners when they had the building built. Maybe, they say he followed building standards. I don't know. Hobgoblins. I don't know what the deal is, but it's possible, even though it's unprecedented and never happened before. And
floors to burn for 7 hours. The NIST computer model was validated with evidence from videos, photos, witness accounts, and other data. It shows that heat from fires expanded long support beams, causing connections and floors to fail.
So you look at the floors failing here, and eventually this column 79 is going to buckle. It fails, and then the entire vertical progression takes place.
The buckled column caused additional collapsed floors and falling debris that removed support from adjacent interior columns. A chain reaction then caused other interior columns to fail in quick succession.
A chain reaction. Never happened before.
The outside shell of the building fell.
Never happened before. They make it sound like, oh yeah, just chain reaction of girders. Never happened before.
This team found no evidence that explosives were involved in the collapse.
And our analysis show that...
So hypothetical blast simulation. Nobody ever said that there was a bomb that blew up this portion of it. They're saying that all the girders had to have been blown. So if it was blown intentionally by a demolition crew. Nobody's saying that a blast, because again, I don't think any buildings have ever completely collapsed into themselves like that from a blast. Never mind a fire. Fire's even less than a blast. People are saying all the girders had to have been blown at the same time for it to happen.
Even the smallest explosive charge that was capable of bringing down the critical column in the building, had it occurred, we would have seen sound levels of 120 to 130 decibels about half a mile away. That would have been an incredibly loud sound, and that sound was not picked up by any of the...
That could have been. He didn't say it would have been. He said it could have been a very loud sound. This guy seems awfully sketchy as well.
Videos or witnesses that we have talked to.
The team found
Look how he looked at the camera.
Sound levels bring down the critical column in the building. Had it occurred, we would have seen sound levels of 120 to 130 decibels about half a mile away. That
Yeah, he's looking at you to see if you believe him or not.
would have been an incredibly loud sound, and that sound was not picked up by any of the videos or witnesses that we have talked to.
the team
It wasn't picked up because he didn't say it would have been. He said it could have been very loud. Of course, it could have been very loud. But there's a video, I don't think I have it, of a guy saying he heard a loud boom. before
found
the
that World
building
Trade Center
collapsed.
7's design was generally consistent with the relevant building codes when it was built.
Our high-rise buildings in this country are very, very safe. Having a collapse of this nature is a very rare event.
Nevertheless, to ensure that buildings do not collapse in
Very rare. It has never happened before. Or since.
fires, even when sprinklers fail or are not present, the NIST team urges reevaluation of the fire performance of structures with long-span floors and other design elements similar to WTC 7. The team's report also calls for stronger codes, standards, and practices so that other buildings don't suffer the same fate.
Never happened before in the history of buildings, metal buildings.
I'm an architect of 20 years, member of the American Institute of Architects, and have been studying steel-framed, fireproof buildings for about that long. Fires in high-rises have never brought down a steel-frame high-rise building at all. Fires in high-rises have never brought down a steel-frame high-rise building at all. Fire for
Look at those buildings.
studying steel-framed, fireproof buildings for about that long. Fires in high-rises have never brought down a steel-frame high-rise building at all, ever. In the case of Building 7, it collapses straight down into its own footprint at free fall speed in the first 100 feet.
I don't see much, hardly
Free
any
fall
smoke coming off that
speed
building.
in the first
Even though they say
100
the roof
collapses
is on
straight
fire?
down into its own footprint
Look at that. I don't
at
see
free fall speed in
hardly
the
any
first
smoke coming off
100
this
feet.
building.
It's
And yet
dropping, as you
burning
can
to the
see,
point
symmetrically,
collapsed in on
smoothly
itself.
at free fall speed in the first 100 feet, 2.5 seconds. This is uncanny. There's 40,000 tons of structural steel designed to resist this collapse.
World Trade Center 7 collapsed because of fires fueled by office furnishings. It did not collapse from explosives or from fuel oil fires.
Here is a 47-story skyscraper. At 5:20 in the afternoon, it drops like a rock, and I mean this fast. Free fall acceleration, straight down, uniformly, symmetrically. Now, a building with 40,000 tons of structural steel cannot fall straight down without all 80 columns on each floor being removed simultaneously and then synchronistically timed floor by floor.
The CIA had an undercover office in 7 World Trade Center. The U.S. official tells CNN the
Floor by floor.
The CIA had an undercover office in 7 World Trade Center. The U.S. official tells CNN the office was involved in counterterrorism and counterintelligence.
For the third
Center. The U.S. official tells CNN the CIA had an
timed floor by floor.
The CIA had an undercover office in 7 World Trade Center. The U.S. official tells CNN the office was involved in counterterrorism and counterintelligence.
For the third time today, it's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before when a building was deliberately destroyed.
All right, blah, blah, blah. Is there anything good up here?
Shockwave ripping through the building and the windows all busted out.
It was almost as if it were a planned implosion. It just...
Ironically, the building had housed the city's emergency management office.
I don't know whether it was accomplished by to make sure that the building comes down safely.
That's what it looks like happened to Building 7. I certainly am much more open-minded about it than I was, and it is because of the involvement of the 9/11 families and all these engineers and architects.
This is Building 7 in the
So the
World Trade
9/11
Center
family sounds
area
like
is collapsing. Now whether we don't even know whether this was something that was engineered for safety reasons or it just happened.
Can you confirm it was number 7 that just went in?
Yes, sir.
And you guys knew this was coming all day?
We had heard reports that the building was unstable and that eventually it would either come down on its own or it would be taken down.
We all fought for...
Okay, so I could see the firefighters saying that the building might collapse, even though it's never happened before. Why would they say? Why would they even assume? If there's never been a metal frame building like that in the history of, and you saw the pictures of those other buildings that were consumed completely in fire and they did not collapse. Why would the fire department assume that this building, all the windows are intact, a little bit of fire on the roof there? Well, not really, even because there's no smoke coming from the thing. So I'm not saying, obviously, there could have been fires because there's smoke at the back, so I mean, the lower levels could have been burning.
For sure, a bomb was set to explode underneath our feet outside 7 World Trade Center.
It was an abrupt, total, and complete collapse at the speed of free fall.
They told us Building 7 was coming down. I do believe that they brought Building 7 down because I heard that they were going to bring it down. Did they actually use the word brought?
Hearsay.
Blow up the building.
Right now, we've told that 7 World Trade
like I say, firefighters. The building's about to blow up.
Right now, we've told that 7 World.
The building is about to blow up. Move it back.
Right now, we've told that 7 World Trade building is being evacuated.
You got to stay behind this line because they're thinking about taking this building down.
Well, of course they're going to evacuate the building. It's on fire.
Building 7 came down.
Many emergency vehicles making their way into Manhattan, including one thing we see if we show the video here, it's a demolition truck carrying construction equipment.
Okay, there's no footage of a demolition truck carrying equipment, but she's reporting saying that there is. Why would she be saying that?
Equipment is going towards, presumably, down to downtown.
We are getting information now that one of the other buildings, Building 7 in the World Trade Center complex.
Okay, now, if this is a TV screen, it could be a delayed image, so, but I don't know. That looks like sunlight on him.
Is on fire and has either collapsed or is collapsing.
The 47-story Salomon Brothers building, situated very close to the World Trade Center, has also just collapsed. More on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago.
Saw this footage. This idiot.
Behind me,
Presumably there were very few people in the Salomon
Building has collapsed. I understand that this is a 47-story building on a Tuesday.
That information, of course, take a look at that right-hand side of the screen.
It's going down right now.
There it is.
Yep.
It went down right there.
I remember getting a call from the fire department.
Side of the screen.
It's going down right now.
There it is.
Yep.
It went down right there.
I remember getting a call
that
from.
could have been a But then it does jive that if there was a report that the BBC was saying, then those idiots could have also reported that it had collapsed, even though it hadn't yet, because they could have been getting it from the same source.
The fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire.
So this building.
I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. We've had such terrible loss of life. They were not sure they were going to be able to contain.
So these are the fires here. You saw the other fires where the buildings were completely consumed in flame, and they didn't collapse. This one's got some fires inside, and that's sufficient for it to implode in on itself.
The fire. I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull.
So pull it is a common expression used by demolitions experts. Who says pull it? Now he said pull it as in to pull the firefighters out. The firefighters were never in the building because the water mains had broken and there was no water to fight the fires with, so they'd never even gone into that building, and it was evacuated earlier. So what's he mean by pull it? Pull it. Like he's a guy. This is a guy who has built buildings for decades in Israel, and New York City bought buildings. I'm assuming he built some too. So this guy was an expert when it came to demolitions and rebuilding buildings. So when he says pull it generally is something in that industry means blow it up. And since he built this building and had it made in the 1980s or 90s, whatever it was, he owned it. So he easily could have had demolitions people go in there. So that chick's reporting on the demolitions crew going in. That doesn't, even if that was a demolitions crew going in preparation to set the building up for it to be blown up in the pending days, they wouldn't have had time to do it the same day because from what I've seen, it takes days. And they wouldn't have blown it up with all the people in the streets if it was a legit corporation doing it overtly. But if it was some clandestine false flag, blow our stuff up for insurance type deal, then they could have. This guy could be a real. If he did do this intentionally, then this guy is a massive. I mean, goes without saying, the guy's a massive piece of shit. If he did this, but maybe he's a victim, just a really, really, really lucky victim because of all the asbestos in the towers that he had to pay to clean up. Now he didn't have to. And building 7. So we're going to rebuild 1 and 2, and let's just build the whole thing. Let's knock down 7 while we're at it. But pull it. That is a really suspicious, poor choice of words if he didn't mean it intentionally.
And then we watched the building collapse.
Yeah, but see,
and then we watched the building.
In the context, he's not just saying pull it as in get the firefighters out. Listen what he says.
Is pull it. And they made that decision to pull. And then we watched the building collapse.
And then we watched the building collapse. So, I mean, yeah, you could say to empty it, but it was already cleared. To pull the firefighters out, there was no firefighters in it. So, and apparently the fire chief said he never spoke to him that day. So,
Trade Center 7, the leaseholder of the World Trade Center complex, Larry Silverstein, he said that they pulled that building, which is a demolition term for intentionally bringing down a building.
Remember, it was in danger, and I think that they made a decision based on the danger that it had of destroying other things, and they did it in a controlled fashion.
We've got to rebuild 7 World Trade Center, and we've got to do it fast. Next thing you know, we've got the designs of a building. And the first design meeting was in April of 2000. And construction began shortly thereafter in 2002.
We're back.
Could he have misspoke? Could he have said it started in April of 2000? Could he have meant started in April of 2001 and he just forgot the one? April of 2000. I mean, how long does it take to design a new building? So if it was in April of 2001, well, that's still before September 2001. So does he mean it was in April of 2002? Let's go back. What the?
Shortly thereafter, in 2002.
We're backed by 9/11 family members and other concerned citizens who are calling for an...
Construction began in 2002. So September, so if he's saying, if he misspoke, then it has to have been, the design began in April of 2002. And then construction began thereafter in the same year. That is pretty quick design work, pretty quick construction. Is that even possible to have the design work starting in April of 2002 and then have building construction erection months April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Could it have started within one of those months? So he had 8 months.
Independent, unbiased investigation.
As an engineer, I have 3 degrees in engineering. I signed that petition for architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth some time ago because the American people absolutely need the truth of 9/11.
So here's like 5, 6, and there's 7. 1 was here. 2 is a little further bottom to the right. So these buildings here were like football blockers. How'd this guy get all that damage below? Because you see, look at these guys. No collapse, no collapse. These guys were smashed and they didn't collapse.
9/11.
I'm a family member trying to find...
Look at that. These guys literally had the building fall on it. And they didn't collapse. Yet, this guy, 7 did? This is building 6.
out the answers to the murder of 3,000 plus people.
It's distressing for everyone to come to terms with this evidence.
It did not collapse.
But we must pursue the truth wherever it leads.
Here's 5.
Look at the evidence
6,
and decide
7.
for yourself.
5, 6, 7. The 1 was back here. You can see some bit of the corner of the shit there. 6 is like a football blocker. 5 is like a football blocker. So it's just a tiny little alley. Granted, the shit came down over the top. But they've already cleared it out here. So these are other... These buildings
of
did
course,
not
our
collapse.
focus is
These
on
are
the
other
science
buildings
of what happened. We want to know how did 400 structural steel connections give way every second during the 7-second freefall collapse of World Trade Center 7.
These buildings, before and after. Unreal. They did not collapse. So here's a layout. So you can see here's the square of 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7 here. And look at the roof damage here. These guys all got some damage. None of these other buildings collapsed. Just 7 way over here. These guys here, here's 1, 2. Oh, that is pretty odd. Okay, let's hear what's going on here. Oh yeah, this is Buddy talking there.
This one's for Larry Silverstein. Last time we talked, sir, I asked you if you could address some of the 9/11 conspiracy theories that you were accused of. Sadly, your response has actually invited more of them. I mean, for the record, everybody knows your infamous comments on PBS where you said pull Building 7 on 5/25 on the day of 9/11.
They were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Your official response was that it was the firefighters. My question is, it was pretty clear that you meant the building, and if it was the firefighters, they already are outside the building by 12 because the water lines were broken. Ask the question. And the fire chief that you said you spoke to, Fire Chief Negro, denies talking to you on that day of 9/11. Can you answer those questions and address the theories against you?
I suggest everybody's consideration that we all look at the thousands of pages of testimony that have been rendered in many years since 9/11, and let's use today's session for some of this.
Are you aware of testimony of bombs in the building before the building collapsed?
So that's a non-answer. I mean, he could have easily have answered.
Sir, are you aware of that testimony? Sir, there's testimony by Bear Jenner. Sir, by Bear collapse, sir? Are you aware of that?
Today's session for some of this.
Are you aware of testimony of bombs in the building before the building collapsed, sir? Are you aware of that testimony? Sir, there's testimony by Bear Jenner. Sir, you don't have to touch me. Listen, I'll walk away. All I'm asking is a question. I don't have to be kicked out. It's a legitimate question. You don't have to put your hands on me. But all I'm saying is,
Hey, Luke, you don't have to put your hands on me. Is he from Brooklyn? I don't know. Luke Radowski was from Brooklyn. You don't have to put your hands on me.
all I'm saying is, no, I'm not. But all I'm saying, you don't have to put your hands on me. But all I'm saying is, no, I'm not. I'm here after the question was not answered. That's why I have a grievance. Larry Silverstein was told not to come into work. That's why him, his daughter, and his son never showed up to work on 9/11.
Okay, granted, it happened, the first plane hit at, I think it was at 9:15, and apparently these people show up to work for 9 o'clock, but Silverstein says he didn't want to go in because he has light skin, and he has to go to a dermatologist for that condition of having light skin.
He put an insurance policy on the building. Reporters, do your job, please. Ask some questions.
Yeah, I mean, Luke's got some points there. I don't know if this video's, he's talking about something. Let's go back. What's he say?
September 11th. You know.
Where
were you on September 11th? You know, I was home. And
this is a guy apparently with a crazy work ethic where he works, many hours a day. And on a Tuesday morning at 9:15, New York City, on September 11th, I was at home.
The only reason I wasn't where I was every morning, subsequent to the 26th day of July.
Why does he keep mentioning the 26th day of July? So, previous to the 26th day of July.
26th day of July. Subsequent to the 26th day of July. My mornings were spent usually at a breakfast meeting at Windows, at 8 o'clock breakfast meeting, Windows.
Okay, so he got the lease for World Trade Center 1 and 2 in January of 2001. And I think it was in July where he got possession of the buildings. I think that's what happened, but I mean, he won. It was like January 31st, I think they had to be in. And so he literally wasn't in the building for 6 months before that. He says the 26th, specifically that day, the 26th of July, 2001. So the end of July, so August. So he was only in the building for just over a month.
That's opportune. And then going down to visit with my tenants, my new tenants, at the Trade Center, getting to know them, understanding their problems and so forth, ascertaining how I could service their needs better. Which is one of the first things you do when you acquire a property. You get to meet your tenants and start talking with them. And so my mornings were spent at the Trade Center, and then by noon.
Well, the first things you do is try to make sure you have tenants, or you don't just talk to them. But I mean, granted, if you have existing tenants, which they would have had, but apparently it was difficult for him to find. Even though he only had the buildings for just over a month. He was only in there for a month, just over a month. July 26th to September 11th. July 26th is August 26th. That's 1 month. 1 month and what? 1.5 months.
I was back uptown, and so that particular morning, because I have light colored hair and fair skin, and annuity to the dermatologist, my wife, God bless her, had made an appointment for me.
Because again, I have light skin, and I got to go see a dermatologist. It's the same story.
At the doctor. And I remember dressing to go to the doctor. I finally saying to my wife, I said, sweetheart, I've got so much to do downtown. I got to cancel this. I've got to go downtown. And she said, you're not going to cancel this appointment. You're going to the dermatologist. And, having been married out to the same woman for 46 years, you get this sense of determination.
So here he's trying to convince us to give it this whole narrative bullshit. Oh, my wife, this is how blah, blah, blah.
On occasion, their voices. And I said, okay, yes, sir.
Trying to be a joke. Yeah, the wife tells you to do it, you do it. So this is more serious than that, buddy.
I'll go. And then just minutes later, she telephone called the television set and witnessed this.
She telephone called the television set. What?
This horrendous circumstance. The television set and then just minutes later, she telephone called the television set and witnessed.
What?
Just minutes later, she telephone called the television set and witnessed.
She telephone called to turn on the television set, maybe. I think that's what he said.
This horrendous circumstance. The first plane hitting, then the second plane hitting. Of course, with the second hit, it became obvious that this was terrorism.
So here's the day before he had possession. This is from July 25th, 2001.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad that you could join us today for this Wednesday, July 25th, 2001 broadcast. Tyranny is enveloping the globe, and the United States is a shining jewel the globalists want to bring down, and they will use terrorism as the pretext to get it done. So that's coming up in the second half of the show. Very important information. I'm going to put the call out that you call the White House and tell them, look, we've seen the news stories that you've wanted to blow things up, that you have blown things up, and that you're saying that 4 million of us are going to die and we need martial law and the Associated Press at one of your little drills you had, and that we're aware of who the terrorists are if you pull this. This can stop this Hitlerian Reichstag event.
Since time immemorial.
Right, so Alex goes on and he squawks about the government's planning to use maybe blame it on Osama bin Laden, but they're planning on blowing up something and blowing up airplanes. And he mentions the World Trade Center because I think it was in '97 they tried to blow up the World Trade Center with that van and knock the footings a bit. So I think that's why, realistically, why he was mentioning the World Trade Center, because it was already a target. But saying Osama bin Laden is pretty impressive. And talking about airplanes, but back then, airplanes were, well, in the 70s, I guess, they were used for terrorist. They've always been, what's his face there in South Africa, was going to blow up an airplane. Nelson Mandela. People seem to forget that guy was going to kill how many innocent people by blowing up an airplane. Piece of shit. Oh, yeah, Nelson Mandela, my hero, was going to blow up an airplane full of innocent people. That's what he was arrested for. All right, so let's see what Silverstein says here.
So here we were, feeling happy.
So he's talking about right after they got, right after in July 26, 2001, when he got the access to the building or whatever.
We won the Trade Center, and I remember...
What's going on?
Joy or pleasure. It wasn't worth it. But at least he's off the streets, and he can't do it again. But what I went through, since I having to learn to walk again, was an absolute horror. So here we were, feeling happy. We won the Trade Center. And I remember looking at Clara, and I said, sweetheart, we have the brass ring. We can do anything you want with our lives. Tell me what you like to do.
So it's a weird metaphor saying he has the brass ring, talking about having the World Trade Center. So I could see that, the brass ring being now that he's achieved the World Trade Center. Or it could also be something more sinister that he knew was pending. He was going to get paid.
Of course, one of the things I've always deprived you of is the kind of time that I could give you once we had the brass ring. I said, we now have it. Whatever you want to do, we can do. Tell me what you want to do, and we'll do it. That was on the 26th day of July, 2001.
Again with the same
on
date.
The morning of 9/11. I'm getting ready, getting dressed to go to the dermatologist. I have light-colored hair, light skin. The sun is a disaster for me. I can't take the sun.
So now he adds, this is years
every
later.
3 months.
See, now he's saying every 3 months. He's never said this before.
I went to the dermatologist like clockwork. I had to.
Why'd you have
And
to?
that morning, I said to Clara, I said,
I
sweetheart.
have to go to the dermatologist. I have light skin. I have to go to the dermatologist. I've never been to a dermatologist for anything other than a mole.
I've got so much work to do down at the Trade Center. Cancel the dermatologist. I'm going down. And she said,
has melanoma or
you
skin
can't
cancer.
cancel again. You canceled last time. You cannot cancel again. And she got angry.
The story's bigger than it
Now,
was.
when you're
in the
married
first
to
telling.
somebody for 50 years, and they get upset, and they get angry, and they start screaming,
Here he goes with the wife story again.
the world comes to an end. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. The words are yes, dear. Whatever you want, I'll do. Don't get angry. Please don't get angry. She said, okay, but you're going to the dermatologist, you're going this morning, and you're not going downtown. 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 And I said, okay, I'm sorry. The words are yes, dear. Whatever you want, I'll do. Don't get angry. Please don't get angry. She said, okay, but you're going to the dermatologist, you're going this morning, and you're not going downtown. Wow.
Really? Wow. She told you. Suspicious.
Suddenly, the phone rings. It's the captain of our boat, docked at Chelsea
Wasn't
Piers,
blinking like this a
not
minute
far
ago.
from where we live, and not far from the Trade Center. And he said, Mrs. Silverstein, is everything okay with Mr. Silverstein? She said, of course.
The captain of our boat called and asked if he was okay.
Why? He said, turn on your television set. And that's when
So he's reading.
Mrs. Silverstein,
But
is
what's on the
everything okay with
pages?
Mr.
Like
Silverstein?
photographs.
She said, of course. Why? He said, turn on your television set.
Look at that, it's all pictures.
And that's when we saw the North Tower in flames. And we saw the plane circling around before it slammed into the South Tower.
All right, while editing this, I noticed his story didn't really quite add up. He's talking about being at the morning of September 11th. I remember what I did, and I didn't own the buildings that were blown up. I mean, a lot of people remember what they were doing that morning, that day, and they didn't own the buildings and lease the land that they were on, or at least lease the buildings, whatever. He had a vested interest. Do you think this guy would remember accurately what happened? So his story is that he was home that morning with his wife. The one story is he's at home with his wife, and the captain of the ship calls, the captain of their yacht, and asks if he's okay, assuming the implication is that the captain was worried that his boss, Larry Silverstein, was in one of the towers, when in fact Larry was at home. The captain of the ship should have known better. So Larry's story is that he was at home and he's talking with his wife. And his wife answers the phone from the ship captain. And the captain asks her, how's your husband? What's going on? And she says he's fine, of course. So that puts the wife with Larry at home. That's the newer story that Larry tells us. And here's an older story that he tells, what's his face? Charlie Rose.
Light-colored hair and fair skin, and I'm an annuity to the dermatologist. My wife, God bless her, had made an appointment for me at the doctor. And I remember dressing to go to the doctor. I'm finally saying to my wife, I said, sweetheart, I've got so much to do downtown. I got to cancel this. I've got to go downtown. And she said, you're not going to cancel this appointment. You're going to the dermatologist. And, having been married now to the same woman for 46 years, you get this sense of determination on occasion, their voices. And I said, okay, yes, dear, I'll go. And then just minutes later, received a telephone call to turn on a television set and witnessed this horrendous.
So here he says she telephone called to turn on the television set. She telephone called to turn on the television set.
Call to turn on a television. Just minutes later, received a telephone call to turn on a television set and witnessed a telephone call to turn. And then, just minutes later, received a telephone call to turn on a television set and witnessed this horrendous
So she telephone called to put on the television set. So she wasn't with them. And if she telephone called to turn on the television set, what happened to the captain of the yacht who called and asked how he was doing, and they then turned on the television set together and watched it? But here he says she telephone called to turn on the television set. So that means when he was talking to her, the implication was they were talking on the phone. He was talking to her about not wanting to go into the city. And so what, she was at work maybe. She was a doctor, so I don't know what she is. But it doesn't jive. So either she's not with him and she telephone called and she's at work or somewhere else, and he was arguing with her on the phone about going in to see the dermatologist, or she's standing next to him. And if she's standing next to him, then how could she call to turn on the television set? And what happened to the captain of their yacht who called and asked how he was, in which case they then turned on the television set? So, I mean, again, could he have misspoke? This is one of those things that I would remember. I do remember, and I don't own the buildings. So what's with this weird she called? It's voodoo.
This horrendous television set and witnessed this horrendous phone call to turn on a television. Minutes later, received a telephone call to turn on a television set and witnessed. Received a telephone call. And then just minutes later, received a telephone call to turn on a television set and witnessed this horrendous. Received a telephone call to turn on Asian their voices, and I said, okay, yes, dear, I'll go. And then just minutes later, received a telephone call to turn on a television set and witnessed this horrendous circumstance. The first plane hitting, and then the second plane hitting, of course, with the second hit.
On the morning of 9/11, I'm getting ready, getting dressed to go to the dermatologist. I have light-colored hair, light skin. The sun is a disaster for me. I can't take the sun. So, every 3 months, I went to the dermatologist like clockwork. I had to. And that morning, I said to Clara, I said, sweetheart, I've got so much work to do down at the Trade Center. Cancel the dermatologist. I'm going down. And she said, you can't cancel again. You canceled last time. You cannot cancel again. And she got angry. Now, when you're married to somebody for 50 years, and they get upset, and they get angry, and they start screaming, the world comes to an end. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. The words are yes, dear. Whatever you want, I'll do. Don't get angry. Please don't get angry. She said, okay, but you're going to the dermatologist, you're going this morning, and you're not going downtown. Wow. Suddenly, the phone rings. It's the captain of our boat, docked at Chelsea Piers, not far from where we live, and not far from the Trade Center. And he said, Mrs. Silverstein, is everything okay with Mr. Silverstein? She said, of course. Why? He said, turn on your television set. And that's when we saw the North Tower in flames. And we saw the plane circling around before it slammed into the South Tower and caused it to end up in flames. And therein was the day of the disaster of 9/11. And that's when we saw the North Tower in flames. And we saw the plane circling around before it slammed into the South Tower and caused it to end up in flames. And therein was the day of the disaster of 9/11. And caused it to end up in flames. And therein was the day of the disaster
of 9/11.
No shit.
Changed our lives, changed the lives of everybody in our world, changed the lives of everybody in the world, certainly civilized people, no matter where they live around the globe. And so we lost almost 3,000 people. It was a miracle. My life wasn't lost because she kept me from going down to the Trade Center.
Is that
She
why?
said, you've got to go to the dermatologist. By the way,
He didn't go. None of his family were there. Granted, the family could have been, quarter two. I mean, usually at quarter two, you are at work. You're in the building. You're parked. You're walking up. You're in the elevator. You got to go up 100 flights, 90 flights. You're going to be in the building, realistically, at 8:45 if you're going to start at 9 o'clock. And he said 9 o'clock earlier on.
I never made it to the dermatologist that day, but at least my intentions were right. And Silverstein Properties lost 4 of its employees.
Yeah, new hires.
And those 4 employees had 6 children among them. And that was a horror. It was just terrible. Now, what I quickly had to do was find out what my obligations were. Of course, I had signed a contract. And now own the Trade Center. And I had a lease obligations to pay $120 million a year in ground rent.
Yeah, well, short of the stories, he got his...
and I only signed that contract for 99
$4.5
years.
billion.
And there I was, 70 years of age.
The insurance companies weren't too happy with him.
I was a little optimistic. But it was my job, my obligation. Started a fire, and by the end of the afternoon, the building just collapsed. The tower, it went right through the... Everything came down. Plus, 7 World Trade Center. It wasn't part of the Trade Center, but it was right north of it. And when the antenna came down from the top of the North Tower, it went right through the facade of 7 World Trade Center. Started a fire, and by the end of the afternoon, the building just collapsed. An obligation. It was my job, my obligation. Of course, they owned the policies. And you could see what happened. You could see the devastation. You could see. And when the antenna came down from the top of the North Tower, it went right through the facade.
Okay, here's
Oh no!
So that's building 1. 2's already collapsed. This is 1. Here's number 7. This brick, brown brick.
Oh no!
It's falling. No tower. No big antenna comes posting through it.
Gone. Twin Trade Tower's fucking gone. Well, of course there's fucking people in there.
Okay, what's that? Okay, here's. See, there's the antenna. There's the building. The antenna did not come through from that angle. All right, maybe there's another angle here. Okay. Here's 7. Here's 1. The antenna is up there.
There goes it going. It's going down now. It's going down now. They're
It's actually
collapsing.
leaning this way as it collapses.
Oh. It just collapsed. Oh, those poor people. Oh god.
See, so you can see a little bit of crap lands on the roof. See some of the debris.
It just collapsed.
And it smokes.
Oh, those
now,
poor people.
Right?
Oh,
There's
God.
smoke coming off there. The thing did not obviously
The second
fall
tower's
through
gone.
it. The antenna. From that angle, it's clear as day. Maybe there's another angle here. 6. So here's the antenna. Here's 1. Here's 7. The antenna's actually falling the other direction. Points away from the camera.
Oh my god.
And you can see clearly it does not go through. Here's some structure left over. Collapses in. But clearly does not go through building 7. Okay, here's 7. Yeah, so he's full of shit.
It wasn't part of the Trade Center, but it was right north of it. And when the antenna came down from the top of the North Tower, it went right through the facade of 7 World Trade Center. Started a fire, and by the end of the afternoon, the building just collapsed. Fortunately, no lives were lost.
So that's a bald-faced lie. We got him. That's a lie for sure. So he's lying about that. If you lie about one thing, do you lie about everything? That's what they say in court, right? What is it? Falsus se uno, falsus se plurum, or something stupid. I can't remember. I don't speak Latin.
Statements were true by the White House about preparing for martial law. And I want you to let them know that if there is any terrorism, we know who to blame. The point is, if any terrorism comes, it's from this government. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s, running the Mujahideen war, and whose family builds all the military bases over in Saudi Arabia right now.
Interesting that bin Laden's family built all the bases, the military, U.S. military bases in Saudi Arabia, and the Silverstein guy was building all these buildings in Israel. Interesting.
And sits on the board of Iridium Satellite. He's the boogeyman they need in this Orwellian phony system.
Quote from Donald Trump, talking about a large-scale terror attack 19 months before 9/11. In his 2000 book, The America We Deserve, Trump wrote, I really am convinced we're in danger of the sort of terrorist attacks that will make the bombing of the 1993 Trade Center look like little kids playing with firecrackers. Trump also mentioned the mastermind of the attack, writing, quote, one day we're told that a shadowy figure with no fixed address named Osama bin Laden is public enemy number one, and U.S. jet fighters lay waste to his camp in Afghanistan. He escapes back under some rock, and a few news cycles later, it's on to a new enemy and a new crisis.
Wait. Okay, hold on a second. Is this real?
So interesting how vilified Alex Jones is and how vilified Donald Trump is today. And these guys both saw it coming.
Trump before 9/11. Have you read this?
It's 2000 in his book.
Are we making this? Somebody, did you make this up, Mika?
Nick.
I did.
Did you make this up?
Nick, tell us it's over, right? Because
Will you
you're wrong about
stop?
everything.
Mika, stop. God.
I think it's over.
What's that? What's the
NBC
range here? Will you
clowns.
stop?
No, it's
Propaganda
I think it's cute.
clowns.
Well, really quickly, though. I mean, so, Willie, that was
2000.
In a book he wrote in the year 2000.
Well, it was published in 2000. He could have written in 1999 for all we know.
Exactly. He might have been a bit more precious.
So he basically predicted the attacks from.
Oh, it is sus. Never before in the history of buildings have, and all three owned by the same guy, or leased. They're owned by the Port Authority. And so this Larry Silverstein, business developer, he leased them all. And it was interesting that all three collapsed in on themselves like no other buildings in the history of buildings.
World Trade Center 7 had always been considered the starting point for rebuilding. Located north of the slurry wall, 7 had been cleared faster than the rest of the site, and there had been no bodies to recover. Pelted by debris when the North Tower collapsed, 7 burned until late afternoon, allowing occupants to evacuate to safety.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.